Section 31 of the Book of 1000 Nights and a Night, Volume 4, by Anonymous. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Griffin. The Book of 1000 Nights and a Night, Volume 4, translated by Richard Burton. Section 31, 334th Night to 336th Night. When it was the 334th night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious King, that Jubayr continued. So I cried to her, 'Repeat the couplets in the air.' But she would not. Whereupon I bade the boatmen pelt her with oranges, and they pelted her till we feared her boat would founder. Then she went her way, and this is how the love was transferred from her heart to mine. So I wished them joy of their union, and, taking the purse with its contents, I returned to Baghdad. Now when the Caliph heard Ibn Mansur's story, his heart was lightened, and the restlessness and oppression from which he suffered forsook him. And they also tell the tale of the man of Al-Yaman and his 6 slave girls. The Caliph Al-Ma'mun was sitting one day in his palace, surrounded by his lords of the realm and officers of state, and there were present also before him all his poets and cup companions, amongst the rest one named Mohammed of Bassorah. Presently the Caliph turned and said to him, "O Mohammed, I wish thee forthwith to tell me something that I have never before heard." He replied, "O Commander of the Faithful, dost thou wish me to tell thee a thing I have heard with my ears, or a thing I have seen with my eyes?" Quoth Al-Ma'mun, "Tell me whichever is the rarer." So Mohammed al-Basri began, "Know then, O Commander of the Faithful, that there lived once upon a time a wealthy man, who was a native of Al-Yaman. But he emigrated from his native land and came to this city of Baghdad, whose sojourn so pleased him that he transported hither his family and possessions. Now he had 6 slave girls, like moons one and all, the first white, the second brown, the third fat, the fourth lean, the 5th yellow, and the 6th lamp black, and all 6 were comely of countenance and perfect in accomplishments, and skilled in the arts of singing and playing upon musical instruments. Now it so chanced that one day he sent for the girls and called for meat and wine, and they ate and drank and were mirthful and made merry. Then he filled the cup and, taking it in his hand, said to the blonde girl, "O new moon face, let us hear somewhat of thy pleasant songs." So she took the lute and, tuning it, made music thereon, with such sweet melody that the place danced with glee. After which she played a lively measure and sang these couplets. "I have a friend whose form is fixed within mine eyes, whose name deep buried in my very vitals lies. Whenas remembers him my mind, all heart am I, and when on him my gaze is turned, I am all eyes. My censor saith, forswear, forget the love of him. Whatso is not to be, how shall's be? My reply is. Quoth I, O censor mine, go forth from me avaunt, and make not light of that on human heavy lies." Hereat their master rejoiced, and, drinking off his cup, gave the damsels to drink. After which he said to the berry brown girl, "O brazier light, and joy of the sprite, let us hear thy lovely voice, whereby all that hearken are ravished with delight." So she took the lute, and thereon made harmony till the place was moved to glee. Then, captivating all hearts with her graceful swaying, she sang these couplets. "I swear by that fair face's life I'll love but thee, till death us part, nor other love but thine I'll see. O full moon, with thy loveliness men till adore, the loveliest of our earth beneath thy banner be. Thou, who surpassest all the fair in pleasantness, may Allah, Lord of worlds, be everywhere with thee." The master rejoiced and drank off his cup and gave the girls to drink. after which he filled again, and, taking the goblet in his hand, signed to the fat girl, and bade her sing and play a different motif. So she took the lute, and striking a grief-dispelling measure, sang these couplets: An thou but deign consent, O wish to heartified, I care not wrath and rage to all mankind betide. And if thou show that fairest face which gives me life, I reck not an diminished heads the kings go hide. I seek thy favors only from this versal world, O thou in whom all beauty cloth firm fixed abide. The man rejoiced, and, emptying his cup, gave the girls to drink. Then he signed to the thin girl, and said to her, O Houri of Paradise, feed thou our ears with sweet words and sounds. So she took the lute, and, tuning it, preluded and sang these two couplets: Say me, on Allah's path hast death not dealt to me, turning from me, while I to thee turn patiently. Say me, is there no judge of love to judge us twain, and do me justice wronged, mine enemy, by thee? Their lord rejoiced, and, emptying the cup, gave the girls to drink. Then, filling another, he signed to the yellow girl, and said to her, O son of the day, let us hear some nice verses. So she took the lute, and, preluding after the goodliest fashion, sang these couplets: I have a lover, and when drawing him, he draws on me a sword blade glancing grim. Allah avenge some little of his wrongs, who holds my heart, yet wrecks o'erbearing whim. Oft though I say, renounce him, heart, yet heart will to none other turn excepting him. He is my wish and will of all men, but fate's envious hand to me's aye grudging him. The master rejoiced, and drank and gave the girls to drink. Then he filled the cup, and taking it in hand, signed to the black girl, saying, O pupil of the eye, let us have a taste of thy quality, though it be but 2 words. So she took the lute, and tuning it and tightening the strings, preluded in various modes, then returned to the first, and sang to a lively air these couplets: Ho ye mine eyes, let prodigal tears go free, this ecstasy would see my being unbe. All ecstasies I dree for sake of friend, I fondle, maugre envier's jealousy. Censors forbid me from his rosy cheek, yet e'er inclines my heart to rosary. Cups of pure wine, time was, went circuiting in joy, what time the lute sang melody, while kept his troth the friend who madded me, yet made me rising star of bliss to see. But, with time, turned he not by sin of mine, then such a turn can aught more bitter be. Upon his cheek there grows and glows a rose, nay 2, whereof grant Allah one to me. And were prostration by our law allowed to aught but Allah, at his feet I had bowed. Thereupon rose the 6 girls, and, kissing the ground before their lord, said to him, Do thou justice between us, O our lord. So he looked at their beauty and loveliness, and the contrast of their colors, and praised Almighty Allah and glorified him. Then said he, There is none of you but hath learnt the Koran by heart, and mastered the musical art, and is versed in the chronicles of yore, and the doings of peoples which have gone before. So it is my desire that each one of you rise, and, pointing finger at her opposite, praise herself and dispraise her co-concubine. That is to say, let the blonde point to the brunette, the plump to the slenderer, and the yellow to the black girl, after which the rivals, each in her turn, shall do the like with the former, and be this illustrated with citations from Holy Writ, and somewhat of anecdotes, and verse, so as to show forth your fine breeding and elegance of your pleading. And they answered him, We hear and we obey. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased to say her permitted say. When it was the 335th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious King, that the handmaids answered the man of Al-Yaman, We hear and we obey. Accordingly, the blonde rose first, and, pointing at the black girl, said to her, "Out on thee, blackamoor! It is told by tradition that whiteness saith, I am the shining light, I am the rising moon of the 14th night. My hue is patent, and my brow is resplendent, and of my beauty quoth the poet, white girl with softly rounded polished cheeks, as if a pearl concealed by beauty's boon, her stature alif-like, her smile like mim, and o'er her eyes 2 brows that bend like nun. 'Tis as her glance were arrow, and her brows bows ever bent to shoot death dart eftsoon. If cheek and shape thou view, there shalt thou find rose, myrtle, basil, and narcissus wone. Men wont in gardens plant and set the branch. How many garths thy stature branch cloth own. So my colour is like the hale and healthy day, and the newly culled orange spray, and the star of sparkling ray. And indeed, quoth Almighty Allah in his precious book to his prophet Moses, on whom be praise, put thy hand into thy bosom, it shall come forth white without hurt. And again he saith, but they whose faces shall become white shall be in the mercy of Allah, therein shall they remain forever. My colour is a sign, a miracle, and my loveliness supreme, and my beauty a term extreme. It is on the like of me that raiment showeth fair and fine, and to the like of me that hearts incline. Moreover, in whiteness are many excellences. For instance, the snow falleth white from heaven, and it is traditional that the beautifullest of all colours is white. The Muslims also glory in white turbans, but I should be tedious were I to tell all that may be told in praise of white. Little and enough is better than too much of unfilling stuff. So now I will begin with thy dispraise, O black, O colour of ink and blacksmith's dust, thou whose face is like the raven which bringeth about the parting of lovers. Verily, the poet saith in praise of white and blame of black, seest not that pearls are prized for milky hue, but with a dirham buy we coals in load? And while white faces enter paradise, black faces crowd Gehenna's black abode. And indeed it is told in certain histories, related on the authority of devout men, that Noah, on whom be peace, was sleeping one day, with his sons Ham and Shem seated at his head, when a wind sprang up, and, lifting his clothes, uncovered his nakedness, whereat Ham looked and laughed, and did not cover him. But Shem arose and covered him. Presently their sire awoke, and, learning what had been done by his sons, blessed Shem and cursed Ham. So Shem's face was whitened, and from him sprang the prophets and the orthodox caliphs and kings, whilst Ham's face was blackened, and he fled forth to the land of Abyssinia, and of his lineage came the blacks. All people are of one mind in affirming the lack of understanding of the blacks, even as saith the adage, how shall one find a black with a mind? Quoth her master, sit thee down, thou hast given us sufficient, and even excess. Thereupon he signed to the negress, who rose and, pointing her finger at the blonde, said, dost thou not know that in the Koran sent down to his prophet and apostle is transmitted the saying of God the Most High, by the night when it covereth all things with darkness, by the day when it shineth forth. If the night were not the more illustrious, verily Allah had not sworn by it, nor had given it precedence of the day. And indeed all men of wit and wisdom accept this. Knowest thou not that black is the ornament of youth, and that, when hoariness descendeth upon the head, delights pass away, and the hour of death draweth in sight? Were not black the most illustrious of things, Allah had not set it in the core of the heart and the pupil of the eye. And how excellent is the saying of the poet, I love not black girls but because they show youth's colour, tinct of eye and heart core's hue. Nor are in error who unlove the white, and hoary hairs and winding sheet a shoe. And that said of another, black girls, not white, are they, all worthy love I see. Black girls wear dark brown lips, white's blotch of leprosy. And of a third, black girls in acts are white, and 'tis as though like eyes with purest shine and sheen they show. If I go daft for her, be not amazed. Black bile drives melancholic mad, we know. 'Tis as my colour were the noon of night, for all no moon it be, its splendors glow. Moreover, is the foregathering of lovers good but in the night? Let this quality and profit suffice thee. What protecteth lovers from spies and censors, like the blackness of night's darkness? And what causeth them to fear discovery, like the whiteness of the dawn's brightness? So, how many claims to honor are there not in blackness? And how excellent is the saying of the poet, I visit them, and night black lendeth aid to me, seconding love, but dawn white is mine enemy. And that of another, how many a night I've passed with the beloved of me, while gloom with dusky tresses veiled our desires. But when the mornlight showed, it caused me sad affright, and I to morning said, who worship light are liars. And saith a third, he came to see me, hiding neath the skirt of night, hasting his steps as when did he in cautious plight. I rose and spread my cheek upon his path like rug, abject, and trailed my skirts to hide it from his sight. But rose the crescent moon and strave its best to show the world our loves like nail-slice raying radiant light. Then what befell, befell, I need not aught describe, but think thy best, and ask me not of wrong or right. Meet not thy lovers save at night, for fear of slander. The sun's a tittle-tattler, and the moon's a pander. And a fifth, I love not white girls blown with fat who puff and pant. The maid for me is young brunette, embonpoint scant. I'd rather ride a colt that's darn upon the day of race, and set my friends upon the elephant. And a sixth, my lover came to me one night, and clips we both with fond embrace, and lay together till we saw the morning come with swiftest pace. Now I pray Allah and my Lord to reunite us of His grace, and make night last me long as he lies in the arms that tightly lace. Were I to set forth all the praises of blackness, my tale would be tedious. But little and enough is better than too much of unfulfilling stuff. As for thee, O blonde, thy colour is that of leprosy, and thine embrace is suffocation. And it is of report that hoarfrost and icy cold are in Gehenna for the torment of the wicked. Again, of things black and excellent is ink, wherewith is written Allah's word. And were it not for black ambergris and black musk, there would be no perfumes to carry to kings. How many glories I may not mention dwell in blackness, and how well saith the poet, seest not that musk, the nut-brown musk, e'er claims the highest price, whilst for a load of whitest lime none more than dirham bids. And while white speck upon the eye deforms the loveliest youth, black eyes discharge the sharpest shaft in lashes from their lids. Quoth her master, sit thee down, this much sufficeth. So she sat down, and he signed to the fat girl, who rose. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased saying her permitted say. When it was the 336th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the man of Al-Yaman, the master of the handmaids, signed to the fat girl, who rose and, pointing her finger at the slim girl, bared her calves and wrists, and uncovered her stomach, showing its dimples, and the plump rondure of her navel. Then she donned a shift of fine stuff that exposed her whole body, and said, Praised be Allah who created me, for that he beautified my face and made me fat and fair of the fattest and fairest, and likened me to branches laden with fruit, and bestowed upon me abounding beauty and brightness. And praised be he no less, for that he hath given me the precedence, and honored me, when he mentioneth me in his holy book. Quoth the Most High, and he brought a fatted calf, and he hath made me like unto a verdure full of peaches and pomegranates. In very sooth, even as the townsfolk long for fat birds, and eat of them, and love not lean birds, so do the sons of Adam desire fat meat, and eat of it. How many vauntful attributes are there not in fatness? And how well saith the poet, Farewell thy love, for see, the Kafilas on the move. O man, canst bear to say adieu and leave thy love? 'Tis as her going were to seek her neighbour's tent, the gate of fat fair maid, whom hearts shall all approve. Sawest thou ever one stand before a flesh's stall, but sought of him fat flesh? The wise say, Joyance is in three things, eating meat, and riding meat, and putting meat into meat. As for thee, O thin one, thy calves are like the shanks of sparrows, or the pokers of furnaces, and thou art a cruciform plank of a piece of flesh, poor and rank. There is not in thee to gladden the heart, even as saith the poet, With Allah take I refuge from whatever driveth me to bed with one like foot rasp, or the roughest ropery. In every limb she hath a horn that butteth me whene'er I fain would rest. So morn and eve I wend me wearily. Quoth her master, Sit thee down, this much sufficeth. So she sat down, and he signed to the slender girl, who rose as she were a willow wand, or a rattan frond, or a stalk of sweet basil, and said, Praised be Allah who created me and beautified me, and made my embraces the end of all desire, and likened me to the branch whereto all hearts incline. If I rise lightly. If I sit prettily. I am nimble-witted at a jest, and merrier souled than mirth itself. Never heard I one describe his mistress, saying, My beloved is the bigness of an elephant, or like a mountain long and broad. But rather, my lady hath a slender waist and a slim shape. Furthermore, a little food filleth me, and a little water quencheth my thirst. My sport is agile, and my habit active, for I am sprightlier than the sparrow, and lighter skipping than the starling. My favours are the longing of the lover, and the delight of the desirer, for I am goodly of shape, sweet of smile, and graceful as the bending willow wand, or the rattan cane, or the stalk of the basil plant. Nor is there any can compare with me in loveliness. Even as saith one of me, Thy shape with willow branch I dare compare, and hold thy figure as my fortunes fair. I wake each morn distraught and follow thee, and from the rival's eye in fear I fare. It is for the like of me that amorists run mad, and that those who desire me wax distracted. If my lover would draw me to him, I am drawn to him, and if he would have me incline to him, I incline to him, and not against him. But now as for thee, O fat of body, thine eating is the feeding of an elephant, and neither much nor little filleth thee. When thou liest with a man who is lean, he hath no ease of thee, nor can he anyways take his pleasure of thee, for the bigness of thy belly holdeth him off from going in unto thee, and the fatness of thy thighs hindereth him from coming at thy slit. What goodness is there in thy grossness, and what courtesy or pleasantness in thy coarseness? Fat flesh is fit for naught but the flasher, nor is there one point therein that pleadeth for praise. If one joke with thee, thou art angry. If one sport with thee, thou art sulky. If thou sleep, thou snorest. If thou walk, thou lollest out thy tongue. If thou eat, thou art never filled. Thou art heavier than mountains, and fouler than corruption and crime. Thou hast in thee nor agility, nor benedicite, nor thinkest thou of aught save meat and sleep. When thou pissest, thou swishest, and if thou turd, thou gruntest like a bursten wineskin, or an elephant transmogrified. If thou go to the water-closet, thou needest one to wash thy gap, and pluck out the hairs which overgrow it. And this is the extreme of sluggishness, and the sign outward and visible of stupidity. In short, there is no good thing about thee, and indeed the poet title of thee, heavy and swollen like a urine bladder blown, with hips and thighs like mountain propping piles of stone. Whenas she walks in western hemisphere, her tread makes the far eastern world with weight to moan and groan. Quoth her master, Sit thee down, this sufficeth. So she sat down, and he signed to the yellow girl, who rose to her feet and praised Allah Almighty and magnified his name, calling down peace and blessing on Muhammad, the best of his creatures. After which she pointed her finger at the brunette and said to her, And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day and ceased to say her permitted say. End of section 31. Recording by Griffin.
Section 32 of the Book of 1,000 Nights and a Night, Volume 4, by Anonymous. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Lars Rolander. The Book of 1,000 Nights and a Night, Volume 4, translated by Richard Burton, Section 32, 337th Night to 339th Night. When it was the 337th night, she continued, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the yellow girl stood up and praised Almighty Allah and magnified his name, after which she pointed her finger at the brown girl and said to her, I am the one praised in the Koran, and the Compassionate hath described my complexion and its excellence over all other hues in his manifest book, where Allah saith, A yellow, pure yellow, whose color gladdeneth the beholders. Wherefore my color is a sign and portent, and my grace is supreme, and my beauty a term extreme. For that my tint is the tint of a ducat, and the color of the planets and moons, and the hue of ripe apples. My fashions is the fashion of the fair, and the dye of saffron outvieth all other dyes. So my semblance is wondrous, and my color marvelous. I am soft of body, and of high price, comprising all qualities of beauty. My color is essentially precious as virgin gold, and how many boasts and glories cloth it not unfold. Of the like of me quoth the poet, Her golden yellow is the sheeny sun's, and like gold sequins she delights the sight. Saffron small portion of her glance can show, nay, she outvies the moon when brightest bright. And I shall at once begin in thy dispraise, O berry brown girl. Thy tincture is that of the buffalo, and all souls shudder at thy sight. If thy color be in any created thing, it is blamed. If it be in food, it is poisoned. For thy hue is the hue of the dung-fly. It is a mark of ugliness, even in dogs, and among the colors it is one which strikes with amazement, and is of the signs of mourning. Never heard I of brown gold, or brown pearls, or brown gems. If thou enter the privy, thy color changeth, and when thou comest out, thou addest ugliness to ugliness. Thou art a nondescript, neither black, that thou mayst be recognized, nor white, that thou mayst be described, and in thee there is no good quality, even as says the poet. The hue of dusty motes is hers, that dull brown hue of hers is mouldy like the dust and mud by Cosset's foot upthrown. I never look upon her brow e'en for eye-twinkling space, but in brown study fall I, and my thoughts take browner tone. Quoth her master, Sit thee down, this much sufficeth. So she sat down, and he signed to the brunette. Now she was a model of beauty and loveliness and symmetry and perfect grace, soft of skin, slim of shape, of stature rare, and coal-black hair, with cheeks rosy pink, eyes black-rimmed by nature's hand, face fair and eloquent tongue, moreover slender-waisted and heavy-hipped. So she rose and said, Praise be to Allah, who hath created me neither leper white, nor bile yellow, nor charcoal black, but hath made my color to be beloved of men of wit and wisdom. For all the poets extol berry brown maids in every tongue, and exalt their color over all other colors. To brown of hue, they say, praise is due, and Allah bless him who singeth, and in brunettes is mystery, couldst thou but read it right. Thy sight would never dwell on others, be they red or white. Free-flowing conversation, amorous coquettishness, would teach Harut himself a mightier spell of magic might. And said another, Give me brunettes so limber, lissom, lithe of sway, brunettes tall, slender, straight, like Samhar's nut-brown lance, languid of eyelids, and with silky down on either cheek, who fixed in lover's heart work to his life mischance. And yet another, Now by my life, brown hue hath point of comeliness, leaves whiteness nowhere, and high o'er the moon takes place. But an of whiteness ought it borrowed self to deck, 'twould change its graces, and would pale for its disgrace. Not with his must I'm drunken, but his locks of musk are wine inebriating all of human race. His charms are jealous each of each, and all desire to be the down that creepeth up his lovely face. And again another, Why not incline me to that show of silky down on cheeks of dark brunette like bamboo spiring brown? When as high rank in beauty poets sing, they say, Brown ant like specklet worn by Nenuphar in crown. And see I sundry lovers tear out others' eyne, for the brown mole beneath that jetty pupil shone. Then why do censors blame me for one all a mole? Allah, I pray, demolish each molesting clown. My form is all grace, and my shape is built on heavy base. Kings desire my color, which all adore, rich and poor. I am pleasant, active, handsome, elegant, soft of skin, and prized for price. Eke I am perfect in seemly bead, and breeding and eloquence. My aspect is comely, and my tongue witty. My temper is bright, and my play a pretty sight. As for thee, thou art like unto a mallow growing about the loop gate, in hue sallow and streaked yellow, and made all of sulphur. Aroint thee, O copper worth of jaundiced sorrow, O rust of brass pot, O face of owl in gloom, and fruit of the hell tree Sakkum, whose bedfellow for heartbreak is buried in the tomb. And there is no good thing in thee, even as saith the poet of the like of thee. Yellowness, tincturing her though nowise sick or sorrow, straightens my hapless heart, and makes my head sore ache. And thou repent not, soul, I'll punish thee with kissing her lower face, that shall mine every grinder break. And when she ended her lines, quoth her master, Sit thee down, this much sufficeth. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased saying her permitted say. When it was the 338th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when the yellow girl ended her recitation, quoth her master, Sit thee down, this much sufficeth. Then he made peace between them and clad them all in sumptuous robes of honor and handselled them with precious jewels of land and sea. And never have I seen, O Commander of the Faithful, any when or anywhere aught fairer than these 6 damsels fair. Now when Al-Ma'mun heard this story from Muhammad of Bassorah, he turned to him and said, O Muhammad, knowest thou the abiding place of these damsels and their master, and canst thou contrive to buy them of him for us? He answered, O Commander of the Faithful, indeed I have heard that their lord is wrapped up in them and cannot bear to be parted from them. Rejoined the Caliph, Take thee 10,000 gold pieces for each girl, that is 60,000 for the whole purchase, and carry the coin to his house and buy them of him. So Muhammad of Bassorah took the money and betaking himself to the man of Al-Yaman, acquainted him with the wish of the Prince of True Believers. He consented to part with them at that price to pleasure the Caliph, and dispatched them to Al-Ma'mun, who assigned them an elegant abode, and therein used to sit with them as cup companions, marveling at their beauty and loveliness, at their varied colors, and the excellence of their conversation. Thus matters stood for many a day, but after a while, when their former owner could no longer bear to be parted from them, he sent a letter to the Commander of the Faithful, complaining to him of his own ardent love-longing for them, and containing, amongst other contents, these couplets. Captured me 6, all bright with youthful glee, then on all 6 be best salams from me. They are my hearing, seeing, very life, my meat, my drink, my joy, my jollity. I'll never forget the favors erst so charmed, whose loss hath turned my sleep to insomny. Alack, O longsome pining and O tears, would I had farewelled all humanity. Those eyes with bowed and well-arched eyebrows dight, like bows have struck me with their archery. Now when the letter came to the hands of Al-Ma'mun, he robed the 6 damsels in rich raiment, and giving them 70,000 dinars, sent them back to their lord, who joyed in them with exceeding joy, more especially for the monies they brought him, and abode with them in all the comfort and pleasance of life, till there came to them the destroyer of delight and the severer of societies. And men also recount the tale of Harun al-Rashid and the damsel and Abu Nowas. The Caliph, Commander of the Faithful, Harun al-Rashid, being one night exceedingly restless and thoughtful with sad thought, rose from his couch and walked about the byways of his palace till he came to a chamber over whose doorway hung a curtain. He raised that curtain and saw at the upper end of the room a bedstead, whereon lay something black, as it were a man asleep, with a wax taper on his right hand and another on his left. And as the Caliph stood wondering at the sight, behold, he remarked a flagon full of old wine, whose mouth was covered by the cup. The Caliph wondered even more at this, saying, How came this black by such wine service? Then, drawing near the bedstead, he found that it was a girl lying asleep there, curtained by her hair, so he uncovered her face, and saw that it was like the moon, on the night of his fullness. So the Caliph filled himself a cup of wine and drank it to the roses of her cheeks, and feeling inclined to enjoy her, kissed a mole on her face, whereupon she started up from sleep and cried out, O trusted of Allah, what may this be? Replied he, A guest who knocketh at thy door, hoping that thou wilt give him hospitality till the dawn. And she answered, Even so, I will serve him with my hearing and my sight. So she brought forward the wine, and they drank together, after which she took the lute and tuning the strings, preluded in 21 modes, then returning to the first, played a lively measure and sang these couplets. The tongue of love from heart bespeaks my sprite, telling I love thee with love infinite. I have an eye bears witness to my pain, and fluttering heart sore hurt by parting plight. I cannot hide the love that harms my life, tears ever roll and growth of pine I sight. I knew not what love was ere loving thee, but alas, destiny to all is dight. And when her verses were ended, she said, O Commander of the Faithful, I have been wronged. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased to say her permitted say. When it was the 339th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious King, that the damsel cried, O Commander of the Faithful, I have been wronged. Quoth he, How so? And who hath wronged thee? Quoth she, Thy son bought me a while ago for 10,000 dirhams, meaning to give me to thee, but thy wife, the daughter of thine uncle, sent him the said price and bade him shut me up from thee in this chamber. Whereupon said the Caliph, Ask a boon of me. And she, I ask thee to lie with me tomorrow night. Replied the Caliph, Inshallah, and leaving her went away. Now as soon as it was morning, he repaired to his sitting room and called for Abu Nowas, but found him not, and sent his chamberlain to ask after him. The chamberlain found him in a tavern, pawned and pledged for a score of 1,000 dirhams, which he had spent on a certain beardless youth, and questioned him of his case. So he told him what had betided him with the comely boy, and how he had spent upon him 1,000 silver pieces, whereupon quoth the chamberlain, Show him to me, and if he be worth this, thou art excused. He answered, Patience, and thou shalt see him presently. As they were talking together, up came the lad, clad in a white tunic, under which was another of red, and under this yet another black. Now when Abu Nowas saw him, he sighed a loud sigh and improvised these couplets. He showed himself in shirt of white, with eyes and eyelids languor digit. Quoth I, Dost pass and greet me not, though were thy greeting a delight? Blessed he who clothed in rose thy cheeks, creates what wills he by his might. Quoth he, Leave prate, for sure, my lord, our work is wondrous infinite. My garments, like my face and luck, all three are white on white on white. When the beardless one heard these words, he doffed the white tunic and appeared in the red. And when Abu Nowas saw him, he redoubled in expressions of admiration and repeated these couplets. He showed in garb anemone red, a foeman friend intituled. Quoth I in marvel, Thou'rt full moon, whose weed shame rose, however red. Hath thy cheek stained it red, or hast dyed it in blood by lovers bled? Quoth he, Sol gave me this for shirt, when hasting down the west to bed. So garb and wine and hue of cheek, all three are red on red on red. And when the verses came to an end, the beardless one doffed the red tunic and stood in the black. And when Abu Nowas saw him, he redoubled in attention to him and versified in these couplets. He came in sable-hued sack, and shone in dark men's heart to rack. Quoth I, Dost pass and greet me not, joying the hateful envious pack? Thy garments like thy locks and like, my lot three blacks on black on black. Seeing this state of things, and understanding the case of Abu Nowas and his love-longing, the chamberlain returned to the Caliph and acquainted him therewith. So he bade him pouch 1,000 dirhams and go and take him out of pawn. Thereupon the chamberlain returned to Abu Nowas, and paying his score, carried him to the Caliph, who said, Make me some verses containing the words, O trusted of Allah, what may this be? Answered he, I hear and I obey, O Commander of the Faithful. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day and ceased saying her permitted say. End of section 32. Read by Lars Rolander. Section 33 of the Book of 1000 Nights and a Night, Volume 4, by Anonymous. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Lars Rolander. The Book of 1000 Nights and a Night, Volume 4, translated by Richard Burton, Section 33. 340th Night to 342nd Night. When it was the 340th Night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious King, that Abu Nowas answered, I hear and I obey, O Commander of the Faithful. And forthwith he improvised these couplets. Long was my night for sleepless misery, weary of body and of thought never free. I rose and in my palace walked a while, then wandered through the halls of Haramry, till chanced I on a blackness which I found, a white girl hid in hair for napery. Here to her for a moon of brightest sheen, like willow wand and veiled in pudency. I quaffed a cup to her, then drew I near, and kissed the beauty spot on cheek had she. She woke a start, and in her sleep's amaze, swayed as the swaying branch in rain we see. Then rose and said to me, O trusted one, of Allah, O Amin, what may this be? Quoth I, a guest that cometh to thy tents, and craves till morn thy hospitality. She answered, Gladly I my lord will grace, and honor such a guest with ear and eye. Cried the Caliph, Allah strike thee dead! It is as if thou hadst been present with us. Then he took him by the hand, and carried him to the damsel. And when Abu Nowas saw her clad in a dress and veil of blue, he expressed abundant admiration, and improvised these couplets. Say to the pretty one in veil of blue, By Allah, O my life, have ruth on dole. For when the fair entreats her lover foul, sighs rend his bosom and bespeak his soul. By charms of thee and whitest cheek I swear thee, pity a heart for love lost all control. Bend to him be his stay 'gainst stress of love, nor aught accept what saith the ribald fool. Now when he ended his verse, the damsel set wine before the Caliph, and taking the lute played a lively measure, and sang these couplets. Wilt thou be just to others in thy love, and do unright, and put me off, and take new friend in lieu? Had lovers Kazi unto whom I might complain, of thee he'd peradventure grant the due I sue. If thou forbid me pass your door, yet I afar will stand, and viewing you, waft my salams to you. The Caliph bade her ply Abu Nowas with wine till he lost his right senses. Thereupon he gave him a full cup, and he drank a draught of it, and held the cup in his hand till he slept. Then the Commander of the Faithful bade the girl take the cup from his grasp and hide it. So she took it and set it between her thighs. Moreover, he drew his scimitar, and standing at the head of Abu Nowas, pricked him with a point, whereupon he awoke, and saw the drawn sword and the Caliph standing over him. At this sight, the fumes of the wine fled from his head, and the Caliph said to him, Make me some verses, and tell me therein what is become of thy cup, or I will cut off thy head. So he improvised these couplets. My tale indeed is tale unlief. 'Twas yonder fawn who played the thief. She stole my cup of wine before the sips and sups had dealt relief, and hid it in a certain place, my heart's desire and longing grief. I name it not for dread of him who hath of it command in chief. Quoth the Caliph, Allah strike thee dead! How knewest thou that? But we accept what thou sayest. Then he ordered him a dress of honor and 1,000 dinars, and he went away rejoicing. And among tales they tell is one of the man who stole the dish of gold wherein the dog ate. Sometimes erst there was a man who had accumulated debts, and his case was straitened upon him, so that he left his people and family, and went forth in distraction. And he ceased not wandering on at random, till he came after a time to a city tall of walls and firm of foundations. He entered it in a state of despondency and despair, harried by hunger and worn with the weariness of his way. As he passed through one of the main streets, he saw a company of the great going along, so he followed them till they reached a house like to a royal palace. He entered with them, and they stayed not faring forwards till they came in presence of a person seated at the upper end of a saloon, a man of the most dignified and majestic aspect, surrounded by pages and eunuchs, as he were of the sons of the Wazirs. When he saw the visitors, he rose to greet them, and received them with honor, but the poor man aforesaid was confounded at his own boldness, when beholding. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased to say her permitted say. When it was the 341st night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious King, that the poor man aforesaid was confounded at his own boldness, when beholding the goodliness of the place, and the crowd of servants and attendants, so drawing back in perplexity and fear for his life, sat down apart in a place far off, where none should see him. Now it chanced that whilst he was sitting, behold, in came a man with 4 sporting dogs, whereon were various kinds of raw silk and brocade, and wearing round their necks collars of gold with chains of silver, and tied up each dog in a place set privy for him. After which he went out, and presently returned with 4 dishes of gold, full of rich meats, which he set severally before the dogs, 1 for each. Then he went away and left them, whilst the poor man began to eye the food for stress of hunger, and longed to go up to one of the dogs and eat with him, but fear of them withheld him. Presently one of the dogs looked at him, and Allah Almighty inspired the dog with the knowledge of his case. So he drew back from the platter and signed to the man, who came and ate till he was filled. Then he would have withdrawn, but the dog again signed to him to take for himself the dish and what food was left in it, and pushed it towards him with his forepaw. So the man took the dish, and leaving the house went his way, and none followed him. Then he journeyed to another city, where he sold the dish, and buying with a price a stock in trade, returned to his own town. There he sold his goods and paid his debts, and he throve and became affluent and rose to perfect prosperity. He abode in his own land, but after some years had passed, he said to himself, Needs must I repair to the city of the owner of the dish, and carry him a fit and handsome present, and pay him the money value of that which his dog bestowed upon me. So he took the price of the dish and a suitable gift, and setting out journeyed day and night till he came to that city. He entered it and sought the place where the man lived, but he found there naught save ruins, mouldering in row and croak of crow, and house and home desolate, and all conditions in changed state. At this his heart and soul were troubled, and he repeated the saying of him who saith, Void are the private rooms of treasury, as void were hearts of fear and piety. Changed is the wadi, nor are its gazelles, those fawns, nor sandals, those I want to see. And of another, In sleep came Suada's shade and wakened me, near dawn when comrades all a-sleeping lay. But waking found I that the shade was fled, and saw air empty, and shrine far away. Now, when the man saw these smouldering ruins and witnessed what the hand of time had manifestly done with the place, leaving but traces of the substantial things that erewhiles had been, a little reflection made it needless for him to inquire of the case, so he turned away. Presently, seeing a wretched man in a plight which made him shudder and feel goose-skin, and which would have moved the very rock to rush, he said to him, "Ho thou! What have time and fortune done with the lord of this place? Where are his lovely faces, his shining full moons and splendid stars? And what is the cause of the ruin that is come upon his abode, so that nothing save the walls thereof remain?" Quoth the other, "He is the miserable thou seest mourning that which hath left him naked. But knowest thou not the words of the apostle, whom Allah bless and keep, wherein is a lesson to him who will learn by it, and a warning to whoso will be warned thereby, and guided in the right way? Verily, it is the way of Allah Almighty to raise up nothing of this world, except He cast it down again. If thou question of the cause of this accident, indeed it is no wonder, considering the chances and changes of fortune. I was the lord of this place, and I built it and founded it, and owned it, and I was the proud possessor of its full moons lucent, and its circumstance resplendent, and its damsels radiant, and its garniture magnificent. But time turned and did away from me wealth and servants, and took from me what it had lent, not given, and brought upon me calamities which it held in store hidden. But there must needs be some reason for this thy question. So tell it me, and leave wondering." Thereupon the man who had waxed wealthy, being sore concerned, told him the whole story, and added, "I have brought thee a present, such as souls desire, and the price of thy dish of gold which I took, for it was the cause of my affluence after poverty, and of the replenishment of my dwelling place after desolation, and of the dispersion of my trouble and straitness." But the man shook his head, and weeping and groaning and complaining of his lot answered, "Ho thou, methinks thou art mad, for this is not the way of a man of sense. How should a dog of mine make generous gift to thee of a dish of gold, and I meanly take back the price of what a dog gave? This were indeed a strange thing. Were I in extremest unease and misery, by Allah, I would not accept of thee in aught, no, not the worth of a nail paring. So return whence thou camest in health and safety." Whereupon the merchant kissed his feet, and taking leave of him, returned whence he came, praising him and reciting this couplet: "Men and dogs together are all gone by, so peace be with all of them, dogs and men. And Allah is all-knowing." Again, men tell the tale of the Sharper of Alexandria and the Chief of Police. There was once in the coast fortress of Alexandria a chief of police, Husam al-Din Hais, the sharp scimitar of the faith. Now one night, as he sat in his seat of office, behold, there came in to him a trooper wight, who said, "Know, O my lord the chief, that I entered your city this night, and alighted at such a khan, and slept there till a third part of the night was past, when I awoke and found my saddlebags sliced open, and a purse of 1,000 gold pieces stolen from them." No sooner had he done speaking than the chief summoned his chief officials, and bade them lay hands on all in the khan, and clap them in limbo till the morning. And on the morrow he caused bring the rods and whips used in punishment, and sending for the prisoners was about to flog them till they confessed in the presence of the owner of the stolen money, when, lo, a man broke through the crowd till he came up to the chief of police. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased saying her permitted say. When it was the 342nd night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the chief was about to flog them, when lo, a man broke through the crowd till he came up to the chief of police and the trooper, and said, Ho, Emir, let these folk go, for they are wrongously accused. It was I who robbed this trooper, and see, here is the purse I stole from his saddlebags. So saying, he pulled out the purse from his sleeve and laid it before Husam al-Din, who said to the soldier, Take thy money and pouch it. Thou now hast no ground of complaint against the people of the Khan. Thereupon these folk and all who were present fell to praising the thief and blessing him. But he said, Ho, Emir, the skill is not in that I came to thee in person and brought thee the purse. The cleverness was in taking it a second time from this trooper. Asked the chief, And how didst thou do take it, O sharper? And the robber replied, O Emir, I was standing in the Shroff's Bazaar at Cairo, when I saw this soldier receive the gold in change and put it in yonder purse. So I followed him from by street to by street, but found no occasion of stealing it. Then he traveled from Cairo, and I followed him from town to town, plotting and planning by the way to rob him, but without avail, till he entered this city, and I dogged him to the Khan. I took up my lodging beside him, and watched him till he fell asleep, and I heard him sleeping, when I went up to him softly, softly, and I slit open his saddlebags with this knife, and took the purse in the way I am now taking it. So saying, he put out his hand and took the purse from before the chief of police and the trooper, both of whom together with the folk drew back, watching him and thinking he would show them how he took the purse from the saddlebags. But behold, he suddenly broke into a run and threw himself into a pool of standing water hard by. So the chief of police shouted to his officers, Stop, thief! And many made after him. But before they could doff their clothes and descend the steps, he had made off, and they sought for him, but found him not, for that the by-streets and lanes of Alexandria all communicate. So they came back without bringing the purse, and the chief of police said to the trooper, Thou hast no demand upon the folk, for thou fondest him who robbed thee, and receivedst back thy money, but didst not keep it. So the trooper went away, having lost his money, whilst the folk were delivered from his hands and those of the chief of police. And all this was of the favor of Almighty Allah. And they also tell the tale of Al-Malik al-Nasir and the 3 chiefs of police. Once upon a time, Al-Malik al-Nasir sent for the Walis, or chiefs of police of Cairo, Bulak and Fostat, and said to them, I desire each of you to recount me the marvelousest thing that hath befallen him during his term of office. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased to say her permitted say. End of section 33. Read by Lars Rolander. Section 34 of the Book of 1,000 Nights and a Night, Volume 4, by Anonymous. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Lars Rolander. The Book of 1,000 Nights and a Night, Volume 4, translated by Richard Burton. Section 34. 343rd night to 346th night. When it was the 343rd night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that quoth Al-Malik al-Nasir to the 3 Walis, I desire each of you to recount me the marvelousest thing that hath befallen him during his term of office. So they answered, We hear and we obey. Then said the chief of the police of Cairo, Know thou, O our lord the Sultan, the most wonderful thing that befell me during my term of office was on this wise. And he began the story of the chief of police of Cairo. There were in this city 2 men of good repute, fit to bear witness in matters of murder and wounds, but they were both secretly addicted to intrigues with low women, and to wine-bibbing, and to dissolute doings, nor could I succeed, do what I would, in bringing them to book. And I began to despair of success. So I charged the taverners, and confectioners, and fruitiers, and candle chandlers, and the keepers of brothels and bawdy houses to acquaint me of these 2 good men whenever they should anywhere be engaged in drinking or other debauchery, or together or apart, and ordered that if they both, or if either of them, bought at their shops aught for the purpose of wassail and carousel, the vendors should not conceal it from me. And they replied, "We hear and obey." Presently it chanced that one night a man came to me and said, "O my master, know that the 2 just men, the 2 witnesses, are in such a street, in such a house, engaged in abominable wickedness." So I disguised myself, I and my body servant, and ceased not trudging till I came to the house, and knocked at the door, whereupon a slave girl came out and opened to me, saying, "Who art thou?" I entered without answering her, and saw the 2 legal witnesses, and the housemaster sitting, and lewd women by their side, and before them great plenty of wine. When they saw me, they rose to receive me, and made much of me, seating me in the place of honor, and saying to me, "Welcome for an illustrious guest, and welcome for a pleasant cup companion." And on this wise they met me without showing a sign of alarm or trouble. Presently the master of the house arose from amongst us, and went out, and returned after a while with 300 dinars, when the men said to me, without the least fear, "Know, O our lord the Wali, it is in thy power to do even more than disgrace and punish us, but this will bring thee in return nothing but weariness. So we reck thou wouldst do better to take this much money and protect us. For Almighty Allah is named the Protector, and loveth those of his servants who protect their Moslem neighbors. And thou shalt have thy reward in this world, and due recompense in the world to come." So I said to myself, "I will take the money and protect them this once, but if ever again I have them in my power, I will take my wreak of them, for, you see, the money had tempted me." Thereupon I took it, and went away, thinking that no one would know it. But next day, on a sudden, one of the Kazi's messengers came to me and said to me, "O Wali, be good enough to answer the summons of the Kazi who wanteth thee." So I arose and accompanied him, knowing not the meaning of all this. And when I came into the judge's presence, I saw the 2 witnesses and the master of the house, who had given me the money, sitting by his side. Thereupon this man rose and sued me for 300 dinars, nor was it in my power to deny the debt, for he produced a written obligation, and his 2 companions, the legal witnesses, testified against me that I owed the amount. Their evidence satisfied the Kazi, and he ordered me to pay the sum. Nor did I leave the court till they had of me the 300 gold pieces. So I went away in the utmost wrath and shame, vowing mischief and vengeance against them, and repenting that I had not punished them. Such then is the most remarkable event which befell me during my term of office. Thereupon rose the chief of the Bulak police and said, "As for me, O our lord the Sultan, the most marvelous thing that happened to me since I became Wali was as follows," and he began the story of the chief of the Bulak police. "I was once in debt to the full amount of 300,000 gold pieces, and being distressed thereby, I sold all that was behind me and what was before me, and all I hent in hand, but I could collect no more than 100,000 dinars." And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased saying her permitted say. When it was the 344th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the Wali of Bulak continued. So I sold all that was behind and before me, but could collect no more than 100,000 dinars, and remained in great perplexity. Now one night, as I sat at home in this state, behold, there came a knocking. So I said to one of my servants, See who is at the door. He went out and returned, one of face, changed in countenance, and with his side muscles a quivering. So I asked him, What aileth thee? And he answered, There is a man at the door. He is half naked, clad in skins, with sword in hand and knife in girdle, and with him are a company of the same fashion, and he asketh for thee. So I took my sword, and going out to see who these were, behold, I found them as the boy had reported, and said to them, What is your business? They replied, Of a truth we be thieves, and have done fine work this night. So we appointed the swag to thy use, that thou mayst pay therewith the debts which sadden thee, and deliver thee from thy distress. Quoth I, Where is the plunder? And they brought me a great chest full of vessels of gold and silver, which when I saw, I rejoiced and said to myself, Herewith I will settle all claims upon me, and there will remain as much again. So I took the money, and going inside said in my mind, It were ignoble to let them fare away empty-handed. Whereupon I brought out the 100,000 dinars I had by me, and gave it to them, thanking them for their kindness, and they pouched the monies and went their way under cover of the night, so that none might know of them. But when morning dawned, I examined the contents of the chest, and found them copper and tin washed, with gold worth 500 dirhams at the most, and this was grievous to me, for I had lost what monies I had, and trouble was added to my trouble. Such then is the most remarkable event which befell me during my term of office. Then rose the chief of the police of Old Cairo and said, O our lord the Sultan, the most marvelous thing that happened to me since I became Wali was on this wise. And he began the story, the chief of the Old Cairo police. I once hanged 10 thieves, each on his own gibbet, and especially charged the guards to watch them and hinder the folk from taking any one of them down. Next morning, when I came to look at them, I found 2 bodies hanging from one gallows, and said to the guards, Who did this, and where is the 10th gibbet? But they denied all knowledge of it, and I was about to beat them till they owned the truth, when they said, Know, O Emir, that we fell asleep last night, and when we awoke we found that someone had stolen one of the bodies, gibbet and all. So we were alarmed and feared thy wrath. But behold, up came a peasant fellow driving his ass, whereupon we laid hands on him and killed him and hanged his body upon this gallows, in the stead of the thief who had been stolen. Now when I heard this, I marveled and asked them, What had he with him? And they answered, He had a pair of saddlebags on the ass. Quoth I, What was in them? Quoth they, We know not. So I said, Bring them hither. And when they brought them to me, I bade open them. Behold, therein was the body of a murdered man, cut in pieces. Now as soon as I saw this, I marveled at the case, and said in myself, Glory to God! The cause of the hanging of this peasant was none other but his crime against this murdered man, and thy Lord is not unjust towards his servants. And men also tell the tale of the thief and the shroff. A certain shroff, bearing a bag of gold pieces, once passed by a company of thieves, and one of these sharpers said to the others, I and I only have the power to steal yonder purse. So they asked, How wilt thou do it? And he answered, Look ye all, and followed the money changer till he entered his house, when he threw the bag on a shelf, and being affected with diabetes, went into the chapel of ease to do his want, calling to the slave girl, Bring me an ewer of water. she took the ewer and followed him to the privy, leaving the door open, whereupon the thief entered and seizing the money bag, made off with it to his companions, to whom he told what had passed. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day and ceased to say her permitted say. When it was the 345th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the thief took the money bag and made off with it to his companions, to whom he told what had passed. Said they, By Allah, thou hast played a clever trick. 'Tis not every one could do it. But presently the money changer will come out of the privy, and missing the bag of money, he will beat the slave girl and torture her with grievous torture. 'Tis as though thou hast at present done nothing worthy of praise. So if thou be indeed a sharper, return and save the girl from being beaten and questioned. Quoth he, Inshallah, I will save both girl and purse. Then the prig went back to the Shroff's house and found him punishing the girl because of the purse. So he knocked at the door, and the man said, Who is there? Cried the thief, I am the servant of thy neighbor in the exchange. Whereupon he came out to him and said, What is thy business? The thief replied, My master saluteth thee and saith to thee, Surely thou art deranged, and thoroughly so, to cast the like of this bag of money down at the door of thy shop, and go away and leave it. Had a stranger hit upon it, he had made off with it, and, except my master had seen it and taken care of it, it had assuredly been lost to thee. So saying, he pulled out the purse and showed it to the Shroff, who on seeing it said, That is my very purse, and put out his hand to take it. But the thief said, By Allah, I will not give thee this same till thou write me a receipt declaring that thou hast received it, for indeed I fear my master will not believe that thou hast recovered the purse, unless I bring him thy writing to that effect, and sealed with thy signet seal. The money changer went in to write the paper required, and in the meantime the thief made off with the bag of money, and thus was the slave girl saved her beating. And men also tell a tale of the chief of the Kuz police and the sharper. It is related that Ala al-Din, chief of police at Kuz, was sitting one night in his house, when behold a personage of handsome appearance and dignified aspect came to the door, accompanied by a servant bearing a chest upon his head, and standing there said to one of the Wali's young men, Go in and tell the Emir that I would have audience of him on some privy business. So the servant went in and told his master, who bade admit the visitor. When he entered, the Emir saw him to be a man of handsome semblance and portly presence. So he received him with honor and high distinction, seating him beside himself, and said to him, What is thy wish? Replied the stranger, I am a highwayman, and I am minded to repent at thy hands and turn to Almighty Allah. But I would have thee help me to this, for that I am in thy district and under thine inspection. Now I have here a chest wherein are matters worth some 40,000 dinars, and none hath so good a right to it as thou. So do thou take it and give me in exchange 1,000 dinars of thine own monies lawfully gotten, that I may have a little capital to aid me in my repentance, and save me from resorting to sin for my subsistence. And with Allah Almighty be thy reward. Speaking thus, he opened the chest and showed the Wali that it was full of trinkets and jewels and bullion and ring gems and pearls, whereat he was amazed and rejoiced with great joys. So he cried out to his treasurer, saying, Bring hither a certain purse containing 1,000 dinars. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day and ceased to say her permitted say. When it was the 346th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the Wali cried out to his treasurer, saying, Bring hither a certain purse containing 1,000 dinars, and gave it to the highwayman, who took it and thanking him went his way under cover of the night. Now when it was the morrow, the Emir sent for the chief of the goldsmiths and showed him the chest and what was therein. But the goldsmith found it nothing but tin and brass, and the jewels and bezel stones and pearls all of glass, whereat the Wali was sore chagrined, and sent in quest of the highwayman, but none could come at him. And men also tell the tale of Ibrahim bin al-Mahdi and the merchant's sister. The Caliph al-Ma'amun once said to his uncle Ibrahim bin al-Mahdi, "Tell us the most remarkable thing that thou hast ever seen." Answered he, "I hear and obey." O Commander of the Faithful, know that I rode out one day a pleasuring, and my ride brought me to a place where I smelt the reek of food. So my soul longed for it, and I halted. O Prince of True Believers, perplexed and unable either to go on or to go in. Presently I raised my eyes, and lo! I espied a lattice window, and behind it a wrist, than which I never beheld aught lovelier. The sight turned my brain, and I forgot the smell of the food, and began to plan a plot how I should get access to the house. After a while I observed a tailor hard by, and going up to him saluted him. He returned my salam, and I asked him, "Whose house is that?" And he answered, "It belongeth to a merchant called such an one, son of such an one, who consorteth with none save merchants." As we were talking, behold, up came two men of comely aspect, with intelligent countenances, riding on horseback. And the tailor told me that they were the merchant's most intimate friends, and acquainted me with their names. So I urged my beast towards them, and said to them, "Be I your ransom? Abu Fulan awaiteth you." And I rode with them both to the gate, where I entered, and they also. Now when the master of the house saw me with them, he doubted not but I was their friend. So he welcomed me and seated me in the highest stead. Then they brought the table of food, and I said in myself, "Allah hath granted me my desire of the food, and now there remain the hand and the wrist." After a while we removed for carousel to another room, which I found tricked out with all manner of rarities, and the host paid me particular attention, addressing his talk to me, for that he took me to be a guest of his guests, whilst in like manner these two made much of me, taking me for a friend of their friend the housemaster. Thus I was the object of politest attentions till we had drunk several cups of wine, and there came in to us a damsel, as she were a willow wand, of the utmost beauty and elegance, who took a lute, and playing a lively measure, sang these couplets: "Is it not strange one house us two contain, and still thou drawest not near, or talk we twain? Only our eyes tell secrets of our souls, and broken hearts by lovers' fiery pain. Winks with the eyelids, signs the eyebrow knows, languishing looks and hands saluting fain." When I heard these words, my vitals were stirred, O Commander of the Faithful, and I was moved to delight for her excessive loveliness and the beauty of the verses she sang. And I envied her skill, and said, "There lacketh somewhat to thee, O damsel." Whereupon she threw the lute from her hand in anger, and cried, "Since when are ye wont to bring ill-mannered louts into your assemblies?" Then I repented of what I had done, seeing the company vexed with me, and I said in my mind, "My hopes are lost by me," and I weeted no way of escaping blame but to call for a lute, saying, "I will show you what escaped her in the air she played." Quoth the folk, "We hear and obey." So they brought me a lute, and I tuned the strings and sang these verses: "This is thy friend perplexed for pain and pine, then amour down whose breast course drops of brine. He hath this hand to the compassionate raised, for winning wish, and that of hearts is lean. O thou who seest one love perishing, his death is caused by those hands and eyne. Whereupon the damsel sprang up, and throwing herself at my feet, kissed them, and said, It is thine to excuse, O my master. By Allah, I knew not thy quality, nor heard I ever the like of this performance. And all began extolling me and making much of me, being beyond measure delighted. And at last they besought me to sing again. So I sang a merry air, whereupon they all became drunken with music and wine. Their wits left them, and they were carried off to their homes, while I abode alone with the host and the girl. He drank some cups with me, and then said, O my lord, my life hath been lived in vain, for that I have not known the like of thee till the present. Now, by Allah, tell me who thou art, that I may ken who is the cup companion whom Allah has bestowed on me this night. At first I returned him evasive answers, and would not tell him my name. But he conjured me till I told him who I was, whereupon he sprang to his feet. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased saying her permitted say. End of section 34. Read by Lars Rolander.
Section 35 of the Book of 1000 Nights and a Night, Volume 4, by Anonymous. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Jean Del Frio. The Book of 1000 Nights and a Night, Volume 4, translated by Richard Burton. Section 35. 347th Night to 350th Night. When it was the 347th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Ibrahim, son of Al-Mahdi, continued. Now when the housemaster heard my name, he sprang to his feet and said, Indeed, I wondered that such gifts should belong to any but the like of thee, and fortune hath done me a good turn for which I cannot thank her too much. But happily, this is a dream, for how could I hope that one of the Caliphate house should visit my humble home and carouse with me this night? I conjured him to be seated, so he sat down and began to question me as to the cause of my visit in the most courteous terms. So I told him the whole affair, first and last, hiding naught, and said to him, Now as to the food I have had my will, but of the hand and wrist I have still to win my wish. Quoth he, Thou shalt have thy desire of the hand and wrist also, inshallah. Then said he to the slave girl, Ho, such an one, bid such an one come down. And he called his slave girls down, one by one, and showed them to me. But I saw not my mistress among them. And he said, O my lord, there is none left save my mother and sister, but, by Allah, I must needs have them also down and show them to thee. So I marveled at his courtesy and large-heartedness, and said, May I be thy sacrifice. Begin with the sister. And he answered, With joy and good will. So she came down, and he showed me her hand, and behold, she was the owner of the hand and wrist. Quoth I, Allah make me thy ransom. This is the damsel whose hand and wrist I saw at the lattice. Then he sent his servants without stay or delay for witnesses, and bringing out 2 myriads of gold pieces, said to the witnesses, This our lord and master, Ibrahim, son of Al-Mahdi, paternal uncle of the commander of the faithful, seeketh in marriage my sister, such an one, and I call you to witness that I give her in wedlock to him, and that he hath settled upon her 10,000 dinars. And he said to me, I give thee my sister in marriage, at the portion aforesaid. I consent, answered I, and am herewith content. Whereupon he gave one of the bags to her, and the other to the witnesses, and said to me, O our lord, I desire to adorn a chamber for thee, where thou mayst sleep with thy wife. But I was abashed at his generosity, and was ashamed to lie with her in his house. So I said, Equip her and send her to my place. And by thy being, O commander of the faithful, he sent me with her such an equipage that my house, for all its greatness, was too strait to hold it. And I begot on her this boy that standeth in thy presence. Then Al-Ma'mun marveled at the man's generosity, and said, Gifted of Allah is he, never heard I of his like. And he bade Ibrahim bin al-Mahdi bring him to court, that he might see him. He brought him, and the Caliph conversed with him, and his wit and good breeding so pleased him, that he made him one of his chief officers. And Allah is the giver, the bestower. Men also relate the tale of the woman whose hands were cut off for giving alms to the poor. A certain king once made proclamation to the people of his realm, saying, If any of you give alms of aught, I will verily and assuredly cut off his hand. Wherefore all the people abstained from almsdeed, and none could give anything to anyone. Now it chanced that one day a beggar accosted a certain woman, and indeed hunger was sore upon him, and said to her, Give me an alms. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased to say her permitted say. When it was 348th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that, quoth the beggar to the woman, Give me an alms, however small. But she answered him, How can I give thee aught, when the king cutteth off the hands of all who give alms? Then he said, I conjure thee by Allah Almighty, give me an alms. So when he adjured her by the holy name of Allah, she had ruth on him, and gave him 2 scones. The king heard of this, whereupon he called her before him, and cut off her hands, after which she returned to her house. Now it chanced after a while that the king said to his mother, I have a mind to take a wife, so do thou marry me to a fair woman. Quoth she, There is among our female slaves one who is unsurpassed in beauty, but she hath a grievous blemish. The king asked, What is that? And his mother answered, She hath had both her hands cut off. Said he, Let me see her. So she brought her to him, and he was ravished by her, and married her, and went in unto her, and begat upon her a son. Now this was the woman who had given 2 scones as an alms to the asker, and whose hands had been cut off therefore. And when the king married her, her fellow wives envied her, and wrote to the common husband that she was an unchaste, having just given birth to the boy. So he wrote to his mother, bidding her carry the woman into the desert, and leave her there. The old queen obeyed his commandment, and abandoned the woman and her son in the desert. Whereupon she fell to weeping for that which had befallen her, and wailing with exceeding sore wail. As she went along, she came to a river, and knelt down to drink, being overcome with excess of thirst, for fatigue of walking, and for grief. But as she bent her head, the child which was at her neck fell into the water. Then she sat weeping bitter tears for her child, and as she wept, behold, came up 2 men, who said to her, What maketh thee weep? Quoth she, I had a child at my neck, and he hath fallen into the water. They asked, Wilt thou that we bring him out to thee? And she answered, Yes. So they prayed to Almighty Allah, and the child came forth of the water to her, safe and sound. Then they said, Wilt thou that Allah restore thee thy hands as they were? Yes, replied she. Whereupon they prayed to Allah, extolled and exalted be He. And her hands were restored to her, goodlier than before. Then said they, Knowest thou who we are? And she replied, Allah is all-knowing. And they said, We are thy 2 scones of bread, which thou gayest in alms to the asker, and which were the cause of the cutting off of thy hands. So praise thou Allah Almighty, for that He hath restored to thee thy hands and thy child. Then she praised Almighty Allah, and glorified Him. And men relate a tale of the devout Israelite. There was once a devout man of the children of Israel, whose family span cotton thread. And he used every day to sell the yarn and buy fresh cotton, and with the profit he laid in daily bread for his household. One morning he went out and sold the day's yarn as wont, when there met him one of his brethren, who complained to him of need. So he gave him the price of the thread, and returned empty-handed to his family, who said to him, "Where is the cotton and the food?" Quoth he, "Such an one met me, and complained to me of want. Whereupon I gave him the price of the yarn. And they said, How shall we do? We have nothing to sell." Now they had a cracked trencher and a jar. So he took them to the bazaar, but none would buy them of him. However, presently, as he stood in the market, there passed by a man with a fish. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased saying her permitted say. When it was the 349th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the man took the trencher and jar to the bazaar, but none would buy them of him. However, there presently passed by a man with a fish, which was so stinking and so swollen that none would buy it of him. And he said to the Jew, Wilt thou sell me thine unsaleable ware for mine? Yes, answered the Jew, and giving him the wooden trencher and jar, took the fish, and carried it home to his family, who said, What shall we do with this fish? Quoth he, We will broil it and eat it, till it please Allah to provide bread for us. So they took it, and ripping open its belly, found therein a great pearl, and told the head of the household, who said, See ye if it be pierced. If so, it belongeth to some one of the folk. If not, 'tis a provision of Allah for us. So they examined it, and found it unpierced. Now when it was the morrow, the Jew carried it to one of his brethren, which was an expert in jewels. And the man asked, O such an one, whence hadst thou this pearl? Whereto the Jew answered, It was a gift of Almighty Allah to us. And the other said, It is worth 1,000 dirhams, and I will give thee that. But take it to such an one, for he hath more money and skill than I. So the Jew took it to the jeweler, who said, It is worth 70,000 dirhams, and no more. Then he paid him that sum, and the Jew hired 2 porters to carry the money to his house. As he came to his door, a beggar accosted him, saying, Give me that of which Allah hath given thee. Quoth the Jew to the asker, But yesterday we were even as thou. Take thee half this money. So he made 2 parts of it, and each took his half. Then said the beggar, Take back thy money, and Allah bless and prosper thee in it. I am a messenger, whom thy Lord hath sent to try thee. Quoth the Jew, To Allah be the praise and the thanks, and abode in all delight of life, he and his household till death. And men recount this story of Abu Hassan al-Ziyadi and the Khurasan. Quoth Abu Hassan al-Ziyadi, I was once in straitened case, and so needy, that the grocer, the baker, and other tradesmen dunned and importuned me. And my misery became extreme, for I knew of no resource, nor what to do. Things being on this wise, there came to me one day certain of my servants, and said to me, At the door is a pilgrim wight, who seeketh admission to thee. Quoth I, Admit him. So he came in, and behold, he was a Khurasani. We exchanged salutations, and he said to me, Tell me, art thou Abu Hassan al-Ziyadi? And I replied, Yes, what is thy wish? Quoth he, I am a stranger, and am minded to make the pilgrimage. But I have with me a great sum of money, which is burdensome to bear. So I wish to deposit these 10,000 dirhams with thee whilst I make my pilgrimage, and return. If the caravan march back, and thou see me not, then know that I am dead, in which case the money is a gift from me to thee. But if I come back, it shall be mine. I answered, Be it as thou wilt, and thus please Allah Almighty. So he brought out a leather bag, and I said to the servant, Fetch the scales. And when he brought them, the man weighed out the money and handed it to me, after which he went his way. Then I called the purveyors and paid them my liabilities. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased to say her permitted say. When it was the 350th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that quoth Abu Hassan al-Ziyadi, I called the purveyors, and paid them my liabilities, and spent freely and amply, saying to myself, by the time he returns, Allah will have relieved me with one or other of the bounties he hath by him. However, on the very next day, the servant came in to me and said, Thy friend the Khorasan man is at the door. Admit him, answered I. So he came in and said to me, I had purposed to make the pilgrimage, but the news hath reached me of the decease of my father, and I have resolved to return. So give me the monies I deposited with thee yesterday. When I heard this, I was troubled and perplexed beyond measure of perplexity known to man, and wotted not what reply to make him. For, if I denied it, he would put me on my oath, and I should be disgraced in the world to come, whilst, if I told him that I had spent the money, he would make an outcry and dishonor me before men. So I said to him, Allah give thee health. This my house is no stronghold nor site of safe custody for this money. When I received thy leather bag, I sent it to one with whom it now is. So do thou return to us tomorrow and take thy money, inshallah. So he went away, and I passed the night in great concern, because of his return to me. Sleep visited me not, nor could I close my eyes. So I rose and bade the boy saddle me the she-mule. Answered he, O my lord, it is yet but the first third of the night, and indeed we have hardly had time to rest. I returned to my bed, but sleep was forbidden to me, and I ceased not to awaken the boy. And he to put me off, till break of day, when he saddled me the mule, and I mounted and rode out, not knowing whither to go. I threw the reins on the mule's shoulder, and gave myself up to regrets and melancholy thoughts, whilst she fared on with me to the eastward of Baghdad. Presently, as I went along, behold, I saw a number of people approaching me, and turned aside into another path to avoid them. But seeing that I wore a turban in preacher fashion, they followed me, and hastening up to me, said, Knowest thou the lodging of Abu Hassan al-Ziyadi? I am he, answered I. And they rejoined, Obey the summons of the commander of the faithful. Then they carried me before Al-Ma'mun, who said to me, Who art thou? Quoth I, An associate of the Qazi Abu Yusuf, and a doctor of the law and traditions. Asked the Caliph, By what surname art thou known? And I answered, Abu Hassan al-Ziyadi. Whereupon, quoth he, Expound to me thy case. So I recounted to him my case, and he wept sore, and said to me, Out on thee, the apostle of Allah, whom Allah bless and assain, would not let me sleep this night because of thee, for in early darkness he appeared to me and said, Succor Abu Hassan al-Ziyadi. Whereupon I awoke, and, knowing thee not, went to sleep again. But he came to me a second time, and said to me, Woe to thee, succor Abu Hassan al-Ziyadi. I awoke a second time, but knowing thee not, I went to sleep again. And he came to me a third time, and still I knew thee not, and went to sleep again. Then he came to me once more, and said, Out on thee, succor Abu Hassan al-Ziyadi. After that I dared not sleep any more, but watched the rest of the night, and aroused my people, and sent them on all sides in quest of thee. Then he gave me 1 myriad of dirhams, saying, This is for the Khorasani, and other 10,000, saying, Spend freely of this, and amend thy case therewith, and set thine affairs in order. Moreover, he presented me with 30,000 dirhams, saying, Furnish thyself with this, and when the procession day is being kept, come thou to me, that I may invest thee with some office. So I went forth from him with the money, and returned home, where I prayed the dawn prayer. And behold, presently came the Khorasani. So I carried him into the house, and brought out to him 1 myriad of dirhams, saying, Here is thy money. Quoth he, It is not my very money, how cometh this? So I told him the whole story, and he wept, and said, By Allah, hadst thou told me the fact at first, I had not pressed thee. And now, by Allah, I will not accept aught of this money. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased saying her permitted say. End of section 35.
Section 36 of the Book of 1,000 Nights and a Night, Volume 4, by Anonymous. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Lars Rolander. The Book of 1,000 Nights and a Night, Volume 4, translated by Richard Burton. Section 36. 351st Night to 353rd Night. When it was the 351st night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that quoth the Khorasani to Al-Siyadi, By Allah, hadst thou told me the fact at first, I had not pressed thee, and now by Allah I will not accept aught of this money, and thou art lawfully quit of it." So saying, he went away, and I set my affairs in order, and repaired on the procession day to Al-Ma'amun's gate, where I found him seated. When he saw me present myself, he called me to him, and, bringing forth to me a paper from under his prayer carpet, said to me, "This is a patent, conferring on thee the office of Qazi of the western division of Al-Medina, the holy city, from the Bab al-Salam to the furthest limit of the township. And I appoint thee such and such monthly allowances. So fear Allah, to whom be honor and glory, and be mindful of the solicitude of his apostle, whom may he bless and keep, on thine account." Then the folk marveled at the Caliph's words and asked me their meaning, whereupon I told them the story from beginning to end, and it spread abroad amongst the people. And quoth he who telleth the tale, Abu Hassan al-Siyadi ceased not to be Qazi of Al-Medina, the holy city, till he died in the days of Al-Ma'amun, the mercy of Allah be on him. And among the tales men tell is one of the poor man and his friend in need. There was once a rich man who lost all he had and became destitute, whereupon his wife advised him to ask aid and assistance of one of his intimates. So he betook himself to a certain friend of his and acquainted him with his necessities, and he lent him 500 dinars to trade withal. Now, in early life he had been a jeweler, so he took the gold and went to the jeweled bazaar, where he opened a shop to buy and sell. Presently, as he sat in his shop, 3 men accosted him and asked for his father, and when he told them that he was deceased, they said, "Say, did he leave issue?" Quoth the jeweler, "He left the slave who is before you." They asked, "And who knoweth thee for his son?" And he answered, "The people of the bazaar." Whereupon they said, "Call them together here, that they may testify to us that thou art his very son." So he called them, and they bore witness of this, whereupon the 3 men delivered to him a pair of saddlebags, containing 30,000 dinars, besides jewels and bullion of high value, saying, "This was deposited with us in trust by thy father." Then they went away, and presently there came to him a woman who sought of him certain of the jewels, worth 500 dinars, which she bought and paid him 3,000 for them. Upon this he arose and took 500 dinars, and carrying them to his friend who had lent him the money, said to him, "Take the 500 dinars I borrowed of thee, for Allah hath opened to me the gate of prosperity." Quoth the other, "Nay, I gave them to thee outright for the love of Allah, so do thou keep them. And take this paper, but read it not till thou be at home, and do according to that which is therein." So he took the money and the paper, and returned home, where he opened the scroll, and found therein inscribed these couplets: "Kinsmen of mine were those 3 men who came to thee, my sire and uncles twain, and Salih bin Ali. So what for cash thou coldest to my mother 'twas, thou soldest it, and coin and gems were sent by me. Thus doing I desired not any harm to thee, but in my presence spare thee and thy modesty. And they also recount the story of the ruined man who became rich again through a dream. There lived once in Baghdad a wealthy man, and made of money, who lost all his substance and became so destitute that he could earn his living only by hard labor. One night he lay down to sleep, dejected and heavy-hearted, and saw in a dream a speaker who said to him, "Verily thy fortune is in Cairo. Go thither and seek it." So he set out for Cairo, but when he arrived there, evening overtook him, and he lay down to sleep in a mosque. Presently, by decree of Allah Almighty, a band of bandits entered the mosque and made their way thence into an adjoining house. But the owners, being aroused by the noise of the thieves, awoke and cried out, whereupon the chief of police came to their aid with his officers. The robbers made off, but the Wali entered the mosque and finding the man from Baghdad asleep there, laid hold of him and beat him with palm rods, so grievous a beating that he was well nigh dead. Then they cast him into jail, where he abode 3 days, after which the chief of police sent for him and asked him, "Whence art thou?" And he answered, "From Baghdad." Quoth the Wali, "And what brought thee to Cairo?" And quoth the Baghdadi, "I saw in a dream one who said to me, 'Thy fortune is in Cairo, go thither to it.' But when I came to Cairo, the fortune which he promised me proved to be the palm rods thou so generously gavest to me." The Wali laughed till he showed his wisdom teeth and said, "Of man of little wit, thrice have I seen in a dream one who said to me, 'There is in Baghdad a house in such a district and of such a fashion, and its courtyard is laid out garden-wise, at the lower end whereof is a jetting fountain, and under the same a great sum of money lieth buried. Go thither and take it.' Yet I went not. But thou, of the briefness of thy wit, hast journeyed from place to place on the faith of a dream, which was but an idle galimatias of sleep." Then he gave him money, saying, "Help thee back herewith to thine own country." And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day and ceased to say her permitted say. When it was the 352nd night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious King, that the Wali gave the Baghdad man some silver, saying, 'Help thee back herewith to thine own country.' And he took the money and set out upon his homewards march. Now the house the Wali had described was the man's own house in Baghdad. So the wayfarer returned thither and, digging underneath the fountain in his garden, discovered a great treasure. And thus Allah gave him abundant fortune, and a marvelous coincidence occurred. And a story is also current of Caliph al-Mutawakkil and his concubine Mahbuba. There were in the palace of the Caliph al-Mutawakkil al-Allah 4,000 concubines, whereof 2,000 were Greeks, and other 2,000 slave-born Arabians and Abyssinians, and Ubayd ibn Tahir had given him 200 white girls, and a like number of Abyssinian and native girls. Among these slave-borns was a girl of Basra, hight Mahbuba the Beloved, who was of surpassing beauty and loveliness, elegance and voluptuous grace. Moreover, she played upon the lute and was skilled in singing and making verses, and wrote a beautiful hand, so that al-Mutawakkil fell passionately in love with her and could not endure from her a single hour. But when she saw this affection, she presumed upon his favor to use him arrogantly, wherefore he waxed exceeding wroth with her and forsook her, forbidding the people of the palace to speak with her. She abode on this wise some days, but the Caliph still inclined to her, and he arose one morning and said to his courtiers, "I dreamt last night that I was reconciled to Mahbuba." They answered, "Would Allah this might be on wake!" And as they were talking, behold, in came one of the Caliph's maidservants and whispered him, So he rose from his throne and entered the seraglio, for the whisperer had said, "Of a truth we heard singing and lute playing in Mahbubah's chamber, and we knew not what this meant." So he went straight to her apartment, where he heard her playing upon the lute and singing the following verses: "I wander through the palace, but I sight there not a soul, to whom I may complain or will change a word with me. It is as though I done so grievous rebel deed, wherefrom can no contrition ever avail to set me free. Have we no intercessor here to plead with King, who came in sleep to me and took me back to grace and amity? But when the break of day arose and showed itself again, then he departing sent me back to dream my privacy." Now when the Caliph heard her voice, he marveled at the verse and yet more at the strange coincidence of their dreams, and entered the chamber. As soon as she perceived him, she hastened to rise and throw herself at his feet, and kissing them said, "By Allah, O my lord, this hap is what I dreamt last night, and when I awoke I made the couplets thou hast heard." Replied Al-Mutawakkil, "By Allah, I also dreamt the like." Then they embraced and made friends, and he abode with her 7 days with their nights. Now Mahbubah had written upon her cheek in musk the Caliph's name, which was Ja'afar, and when he saw this, he improvised the following. One wrote upon her cheek with musk, his name was Ja'afar highs. My soul for hers who wrote upon her cheek the name I cite. If an her fingers have inscribed one line upon her cheek, full many a line in heart of mine those fingers did indite. O thou, whom Ja'afar's soul of men possesseth for himself, Allah fill Ja'afar's stream full draught, the wine of thy delight. When Al-Mutawakkil died, his host of women forgot him, all save Mahbubah. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day and ceased saying her permitted say. When it was the 353rd night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious King, that when Al-Mutawakkil died, his host of women forgot him, all save Mahbubah, who ceased not to mourn for him, till she deceased and was buried by his side. The mercy of Allah be on them both. And men also tell the tale of Wardant the butcher, his adventure with the lady and the bear. There lived once in Cairo, in the days of Caliph Al-Hakim bi Amrillah, a butcher named Wardan, who dealt in sheep's flesh. And there came to him every day a lady and gave him a dinar, whose weight was nigh 2.5 Egyptian dinars, saying, Give me a lamb. So he took the money and gave her the lamb, which she delivered to a porter she had with her. And he put it in his crate, and she went away with him to her own place. Next day she came in the forenoon, and this went on for a long time, the butcher gaining a dinar by her every day, till at last he began to be curious about her case, and said to himself, This woman buyeth of me a ducat worth of meat every morning, paying ready money, and never misseth a single day. Verily, this is a strange thing. So he took an occasion of questioning the porter in her absence, and asked him, Whither goest thou every day with yonder woman? And he answered, I know not what to make of her for surprise, inasmuch as every day after she hath taken the lamb of thee, she buyeth necessaries of the table, fresh and dried fruits and wax candles, a dinar's worth, and taketh of a certain person, which is a Nazarene, 2 flagons of wine, worth another dinar. And then she leadeth me with the whole, and I go with her to the Wazir's gardens, where she blindfoldeth me, so that I cannot see on what part of earth I set my feet. And taking me by the hand, she leadeth me, I know not whither. Presently she saith, Set down here. And when I have done so, she giveth me an empty crate she hath ready, and, taking my hand, leadeth me back to the Wazir's gardens, the place where she bound my eyes, and there removeth the bandage, and giveth me 10 silver bits. Allah be your helper, quoth Vardan, but he redoubled in curiosity about her case. Disquietude increased upon him, and he passed the night in exceeding restlessness. And quoth the butcher, next morning she came to me of a custom, and taking the lamb, for which she paid the dinar, delivered it to the porter, and went away. So I gave my shop in charge to a lad, and followed her without her seeing me. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased to say her permitted say. End of section 36. Read by Lars Rolander. Section 37 of the Book of 1,000 Nights and a Night, Volume 4, by Anonymous. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Lars Rolander. The Book of 1,000 Nights and a Night, Volume 4, translated by Richard Burton. Section 37. 354th Night to 357th Night. When it was the 354th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Vardan the butcher continued. So I gave my shop in charge to a lad, and followed her without her seeing me. Nor did I cease to keep her in sight, hiding behind her till she left Cairo and came to the Wazir's gardens. Then I hid myself whilst she bandaged the porter's eyes, and followed her again from place to place till she came to the mountain and stopped at a spot where there was a great stone. Here she made the porter set down his crate, and I waited whilst she conducted him back to the Wazir's gardens, after which he returned, and taking out the contents of the basket, instantly disappeared. Then I went up to that stone, and wrenching it up, entered the hole, and found behind the stone an open trapdoor of brass and a flight of steps leading downwards. So I descended little by little till I came to a long corridor, brilliantly lighted, and followed it till I made a closed door, as it were the door of a saloon. I looked about the wall sides near the doorway till I discovered a recess with steps therein. Then climbed up and found a little niche with a bull's-eye giving upon a saloon. Thence I looked inside and saw the lady cut off the choicest parts of the lamb, and laying them in a saucepan, throw the rest to a great big bear, who ate it all to the last bite. Now when she had made an end of cooking, she ate her fill, after which she set on the fruits and confections, and brought out the wine, and fell to drinking a cup herself, and giving the bear to drink in a basin of gold. And as soon as she was heated with wine, she put off her petticoat trousers, and lay down on her back, whereupon the bear arose and came up to her and stroked her, whilst she gave him the best of what belongeth to the sons of Adam, till he had made an end, when he sat down and rested. Presently he sprang upon her and rogered her again, and when he ended, he again sat down to rest. And he ceased not so doing till he had futtered her 10 times, and they both fell to the ground in a fainting fit, and lay without motion. Then quoth I to myself, Now is my opportunity, and taking a knife I had with me, that would cut bones before flesh, went down to them, and found them motionless, not a muscle of them moving, for their hearts winking and swiving. So I put my knife to the bear's gullet, and pressed upon it, till I finished him by severing his head from his body, and he gave a great snort like thunder, whereat the lady started up in alarm, and seeing the bear slain, and me standing, whittle in hand, she shrieked so loud a shriek, that I thought the soul had left her body. Then she asked, O Vardan, is this how thou requitest me my favors? And I answered, O enemy of thine own soul, is there a famine of men that thou must do this damnable thing? She made no answer, but bent down over the bear and looked fondly upon him. Then, finding his head divided from his body, said to me, O Vardan, which of the two courses wouldst thou take? Either obey me in what I shall say, and be the means of thine own safety. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased saying her permitted say. When it was the 355th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that, quoth the lady, O Vardan, which of the two courses wouldst thou take? Either obey me in what I shall say, and be the means of thine own safety and competency to the end of thy days, or gainsay me, and so cause thine own destruction. Answered I choose rather to hearken unto thee. Say what thou wilt. Quoth she, Then slay me as thou hast slain this bear, and take thy need of this hoard, and wend thy ways. Quoth I am better than this bear. So return thou to Allah Almighty and repent, and I will marry thee, and we will live on this treasure the rest of our lives. She rejoined, O Vardan, far be it from me. How shall I live after him? By Allah, an thou slay me not, I will assuredly do away thy life. So leave bandying words with me, or thou art a lost man. This is all I have to say to thee, and peace be with thee. Then said I will kill thee, and thou shalt go to the curse of Allah. So saying, I caught her by the hair and cut her throat, and she went to the curse of Allah, and of the angels, and of all mankind. And after so doing, I examined the place, and found there gold and bezel stones and pearls, such as no one king could bring together. So I filled the porter's crate with as much as I could carry, and covered it with the clothes I had on me. Then I shouldered it, and going up out of the underground treasure chamber, fared homewards, and ceased not faring on, till I came to the gate of Cairo, where, behold, I fell in with 10 of the bodyguard of Al-Hakim bi Amrillah, followed by the prince himself, who said to me, Ho Vardan! At thy service, O king, replied I, when he asked, Hast thou killed the bear and the lady? And I answered, Yes. Quoth he, Set down the basket from thy head, and fear not, for all the treasure thou hast with thee is thine, and none shall dispute it with thee. So I set down the crate before him, and he uncovered it and looked at it, then said to me, Tell me their case, albeit I know it, as if I had been present with you. So I told him all that had passed, and he said, Thou hast spoken the truth, adding, O Vardan, come now with me to the treasure. So I returned with him to the cavern, where he found the trapdoor closed, and said to me, O Vardan, lift it. None but thou can open the treasure, for it is enchanted in thy name and nature. Said I, By Allah, I cannot open it. But he said, Go up to it, trusting in the blessing of Allah. So I called upon the name of Almighty Allah, and, advancing to the trapdoor, put my hand to it, whereupon it came up as it had been of the lightest. Then said the Caliph, Go down and bring hither what is there, for none but one of thy name and semblance and nature hath gone down thither since the place was made, and the slaying of the bear and the woman was appointed to be at thy hand. This was chronicled with me, and I was awaiting its fulfillment. Accordingly, quoth Vardan, I went down and brought up all the treasure, whereupon the Caliph sent for beasts of burden, and carried it away after giving me my crate, which was therein. So I bore it home, and opened me a shop in the market. And saith he who telleth the tale, This market is still extant, and is known as Vardan's market. And I have heard recount another story of the king's daughter and the ape. There was once a sultan's daughter, whose heart was taken with love of a black slave. He abated her maidenhead, and she became passionately addicted to futtering, so that she could not do without it a single hour, and complained of her case to one of her body women, who told her that no thing poketh and stroketh more abundantly than the baboon. Now it so chanced one day that an ape leader passed under her lattice with a great ape. So she unveiled her face, and looking upon the ape, signed to him with her eyes, whereupon he broke his bonds and chain, and climbed up to the princess, who hid him in a place with her, and night and day he abode there, eating and drinking and copulating. Her father heard of this and would have killed her. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day and ceased to say her permitted say. When it was the 356th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when the Sultan heard of this work, he would have slain his daughter, but she smoked his design, and disguising herself in Mameluke's dress, mounted horse after loading a mule with gold and bullion and precious stuffs past all account. Then, carrying with her the ape, she fled to Cairo, where she took up her abode in one of the houses without the city, and upon the verge of the Suez desert. Now every day she used to buy meat of a young man, a butcher, but she came not to him till after noonday. And then she was so yellow and disordered in face that he said in his mind, There must indeed hang some mystery by this slave. Accordingly, quoth the butcher, one day when she came to me as usual, I went out after her secretly, and ceased not to follow her from place to place, so as she saw me not, till she came to her lodging on the edge of her waste, and entered. And I looked in upon her through a cranny, and saw her as soon as she was at home, kindle a fire and cook the meat, of which she ate enough, and served up the rest to a baboon she had by her, and he did the same. Then she put off the slave's habit and donned the richest of women's apparel, and so I knew that she was a lady. After this she set on wine and drank, and gave the ape to drink, and he stroked her nigh 60 times without drawing, till she swooned away, when he spread over her a silken coverlet and returned to his place. Then I went down in the midst of the place, and the ape, becoming aware of me, would have torn me in pieces, but I made haste to pull out my knife and slit his paunch, and his bowels fell out. The noise aroused the young lady, who awoke terrified and trembling, and when she saw the ape in this case, she shrieked such a shriek that her soul well nigh fled her body. Then she fell down in a fainting fit. When she came to herself, she said to me, What moved thee to do thus? Now Allah upon thee send me after him. But I spoke her fair for a while, and pledged myself to stand in the ape's stead in the matter of much poking, till her trouble subsided, and I took her to wife. But when I came to perform my promise, I proved a failure, and I fell short in this matter, and could not endure such hard labor. So I complained of my case, and mentioned her exorbitant requirements to a certain old woman, who engaged to manage the affair, and said to me, Needs must thou bring me a cooking pot full of virgin vinegar, and a pound of the herb pellitory, called woundwort. So I brought her what she sought, and she laid the pellitory in the pot, with the vinegar, and set it on fire, till it was thoroughly boiled. Then she bade me futter the girl, and I futtered her till she fainted away, when the old woman took her up, and she unconscious, and set her parts to the mouth of the cooking pot. The steam of the pot entered her slit, and there fell from it somewhat, which I examined. And behold, it was 2 small worms, one black and the other yellow. Quoth the old woman, The black was bred of the strokings of the negro, and the yellow of stroking with the baboon. Now when she recovered from her swoon, she abode with me in all delight and solace of life, and sought not swimming as before, for Allah had done away from her this appetite, whereat I marveled. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased saying her permitted say. When it was the 357th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the young man continued, In truth, Allah had done away from her this appetite, whereat I marveled and acquainted her with the case. Thereupon I lived with her, and she took the old woman to be to her in the stead of her mother. And, said he who told me the tale, the old woman and the young man and his wife abode in joy and cheer till there came to them the Destroyer of Delights and the Sunderer of Societies, and glory be to the ever-living One, who dieth not, and in whose hands is dominion of the world, visible and invisible. And another tale they tell is that of End of section 37 and end of Arabian Nights Volume 4. Read by Lars Rolander. Thank you so much for listening.